My personal favorites are the ones I made, but outside of those, I know there's an OpenSeas one that I think is maybe like the top. It has the most stars of any dashboard on Dune.
Discover the potential of decentralized technology and Web3 for businesses on our podcast. As a professional, if you want to finally understand tokenization, metaverse, cryptocurrency, blockchain, and Web3, this is the content for you. My name is Łukasz Szymański from Tokenomia Pro, which is Web3 consulting, where we help businesses transition to the Web3 world. Joining us today is JPN, analyst at Ethereans Labs and a user of Dune's platform for creating interactive dashboards. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Dune Analytics is a powerful platform for creating interactive dashboards, making it easy for businesses and projects to visualize and organize their data. Here at Tokenomia Pro, we use Dune Analytics for ourselves and our clients. Today on our podcast, we have the pleasure of discussing our experiences using it with our guest, JPN. Please tell me how you started your journey with Dune Analytics.
So my journey with Dune started 6 or 7 months ago. I was a member of Ethereans OS as just a token holder. And 7 months ago or so, one of the delegations at Ethereans OS posted a bounty to go ahead and start making a Dune Analytics dashboard and a couple of queries to help us look at our protocols. And I had a little bit of background in coding and figured since the tools were free, go ahead and get on and give it a try. And it was over the course of basically a long weekend that I sat down and began just playing with Dune. And it started with just take somebody else's query, fork it, change like a token contract address, and look at what that query would do for our protocol and what insights we could gain from it. And I started to slap together this dashboard over a couple of days. And as I started to do a little bit more, I got more comfortable with it, began actually writing the SQL query language to begin looking at additional insights for our protocol. And it sort of snowballed from there. Once the dashboard was complete, it drew the attention of the project founders, and they're like, hey, that's pretty awesome. Can we bring you on to do this full time? That's how I ended up here. So it was just passion and being able to use this free but very powerful tool to start looking at our protocol that got them interested in me and brought me into Web3 that way.
It's a great example of how people can, if they really want to, how they can go into the Web3 world with just once per weekend, bringing a value to the community, putting to the project with not really high level technical skills. You can progress them during the work. As you mentioned, it's basically snowball effect, right?
Oh, yeah. When I first started, I knew zero SQL. I didn't even know that was the language they were using. It was mostly me just looking at the code and being like, oh, I know that's a contract address. Let me change it to our token's contract address. And then it got to the point where I was like, oh, I want to see this other thing. And no one else really had a query for it. It was unique to our protocol. And it's now I have to figure out how to actually start coding. And the great thing about SQL is you can start with literally 2 lines of code and get results from it, which is really just powerful in my opinion, that you can have such a small snippet of code give you something and start building from there. It all starts really simple. And if you have some level of programming background, the amount of calls and you have and or statements and some other stuff, it's pretty intuitive to start picking up if you have some level of programming background.
Before we'll jump into the discussion about the specific project that you are working on, let's first try to address and unpack the Dune platform itself. So regarding the Dune, what kind of data can we find there? Is it pretty much everything that's happening on the blockchain? Like, how does it work from your side?
It's most things that happen on the blockchain. So the basic background of Dune is they'll look at contracts that are deployed to the blockchain, and it doesn't need to just be the Ethereum mainnet. They also look at Polygon, I think even BSC, Optimism, and they just recently got Bitcoin data even on Dune. So it's a wide variety of blockchains. But what they'll do is you can point to a contract address, upload the ABI, which is how you go from contract language to like calls and events that contract can emit. Dune will then go through, look at that contract address, look at these calls to the contract, look at the events emitted from the contract, and file them away into a database. And then they can use SQL, which is just a database querying language, to look at that database, start calling that database, and you can merge it in with other databases, join it with other databases, and start doing more and more powerful things. But they're able to leverage the ability for the history of querying databases to address Web3 data instead of trying to directly go through a node and call that data live on the blockchain.
That's one of my favorite feature in Dune Analytics, which is the possibility of you submitting your own contracts to Dune so they can index it and then you can query it through the SQL, which is showing an example of building on the values of Web3 around permissionless access. If there is no data available for you currently in Dune, you can just go submit and then it's there and you can start to play around it. So every project, every business can do that, which I really like. About the projects and the businesses itself, from their perspectives and the projects that you are working with, why is it beneficial for them to create dashboards on Dune? What's your take on that?
My take on that is by not only using the blockchain to go through and have your data available that way, Dune makes it really easy to access and use that data. If you're working in the world of Web 2, you have to find a way to log your own databases. Go put everything that you want to track into some database, maintain that database, and then also be able to query that database. And Dune lets you do much of that from the background. They're basically database maintainers. You can just point at the contracts that you want to look at, and they'll take that data, scrape it into the databases, and then from the databases, you just have to be able to write a little bit of SQL to actually query it. And they take care of the visualizations too. So you don't have to build out a visualization engine. You don't have to pay for other expensive software to build your own visualizations. They take care of so much of that. And you get to leverage the data that you're producing anyways through Web3. So you produce the data. They manage all the databases for you. You don't have to worry about that aspect of it. And then you get to just query it, visualize it the way you want. And you can do all of that for free, which is, I think, wild that they can offer that sort of service at no cost.
Yeah, exactly. And I was smiling because a good friend of mine, this is his domain, the data engineering and data analytics. We were working before in the previous company. I hope he's right now listening to it because I do know how much effort and money and people and processes and tools it takes in the Web2 world, especially in big companies, to first of all just ingest the data, then to process it. There is also a layer to make sure that you are compliant with some laws, and then you need to make sure how you can democratize access to the data for the people in the company, how they can make queries, how they can make charts, and all of this stuff, which is really huge investment. And that's why I love your point, because exactly this is the point that the blockchain as an infrastructure solves, plus Dune as a platform that gives you access to all of this data with the tools that you already know if you are coming from the Web2 data analytics world. For me, it's a killer feature. My personal mission is to make sure that I will be able to migrate some of my former colleagues from the data analytics world into Web3 because we do need their skill set. And because of the fact that infrastructure is already there, they will be able to focus more on analytics itself and building good conclusions on top of the data that exists on the blockchain. That was the perspective of the project itself. There is also a big component of the community in the Web3 world. So as we can see, there is transparency related to it, the fact that everything is transparent. You can just go and build a dashboard on top of it. So from the community perspective, that will read the dashboards. How does the community benefit from using the Dune dashboard?
So using Ethereans OS as an example of this, we're part of a DAO where the token holders are able to vote on decisions for the overall organization. Stuff like the rate of inflation that we have and what tokens we put in, like our investment contract. And it was the investment contract question that sort of got me thinking initially, and it was some of the motivation for me to start building the dashboard is as a community member, The question I wanted to know is, how are the tokens we're investing in doing? What's our best performer? What's our worst performer? And should we go ahead and change which ones we're investing in? And we were able to address that with Dune. We could actually look at the tokens we were buying into the investment fund, look at the amount that we were spending on those, look at how much we were making as we were selling those back off. We were able to basically figure out, this is our best performing token, this is our worst performing token, and then we could have discussions on that in our Discord and say, maybe we should make a proposal to go ahead and change those tokens that we're investing in, because these aren't doing so well. This metaverse index, it's down pretty bad here. But on the flip side, we had ENS as well, the Ethereum name service, and that was doing really well. So it's, oh, maybe we should change our investment strategy, focus on ENS and some of the other tokens, and ditch the metaverse for now. And that's we're working to get a proposal out for that. But it's helping the community members to make decisions about the protocol based on the data that we're getting in. We can look at that inflation rate, say, okay, this is how much the protocol is generating in revenue because of it. What if we went ahead and changed that rate? How would that go ahead and impact those funding numbers? So we can take that. Plus, it's we can gather all of the information that's relevant for our protocol in one place. Otherwise, you have to go over to CoinGecko or something to go look at the circulating supply, and then you go over to Uniswap to look at liquidity numbers over there, and you go to another site, and it's like, you can combine it all into a couple of Dune dashboards where all that information is centralized right there, and at a glance you can get a lot of insights about how not only like the token's doing, but how the protocol's doing, what sort of revenue it's generating, and it's just very powerful for that.
It's another great example of community with bottom-up initiatives that are using the structures, the language, the data-driven approach that is mostly known only from big companies. It proves that you don't need to have overwhelming management structure. You don't need to have all of these procedures in place. You just need to have engaged community that is looking into the long-term value of the project. They are making the right questions and they are looking for the answers on top of the data, on top of the right approach. This is exactly how I would like the communities in Web3 to look like. So that's really great to hear. It's a great advertisement for Ethereans OS community. That's for sure. That sounds really great. Going back to the technical or process topics regarding the Dune platform from your perspective, so the person that is playing around with it, creating the dashboards for the project, what's the process of setting up and maintaining a dashboard on Dune? Are there any challenges or limitations you've encountered while using the platform?
Yeah, so the process that I went through as we started out was, you have to go through and make sure the contracts get uploaded to Dune if you have token-specific contracts. And we had a lot of them being an operating system on Ethereum. I think over the first couple of weeks I was there, we submitted like 50 contracts to Dune for them to decode and enter into their database. So that's like the first level. You get them the contracts that you want to track. They already track stuff for decentralized exchanges, for NFT marketplace. They track some other stuff as well. But if you have specific ones, you upload. And then you start generating sort of the list of questions of what you would want to have answered based on the data. So it's, okay, if I have a token, what does the token distribution look like? What do the top 10% of holders, how much of the token do they have? How much of our token gets sent around on exchanges every day? How much do we have in a certain contract that's our own investment fund? What's our treasury look like? You're able to go ahead and pose those questions, and then you think, okay, how am I going to go ahead and query it? What are the relevant parameters I need to look at to go ahead and answer this question? And once you have a handful of questions asked and answered through the data, then you go ahead and build them out on a dashboard, and you can arrange them, add text, images, etc. Do some different visualizations. If you have a time series, you can do line graphs. If you're looking for distribution, you might be looking at like pie charts. And we try to utilize a wide range of those throughout. And then maintenance is pretty low maintenance because Dune's automatically updating your databases as new blockchain data gets generated, so you don't have to worry about, oh, I have to do sweeps and I have to make sure this gathering program that I have for my data is working. You don't have to do any of that. Once the dashboard's made, they're pretty well maintained. Now, if you update contract addresses or you add stuff to your protocol, yeah, you may have to go in and make some tweaks. But for the most part, once you build it, it's pretty robust and someone else is taking care of all that back end. For limitations, we found a couple of things oh, it'd be really nice if we could do this, but we couldn't. And one of the big ones is reading like metadata off of contracts or NFTs is not something Dune can quite do because for that you have to actually call the blockchain data and you're not running a node for that. So there's a little bit of limitations, but there's also ways around them. With Dune you can upload custom databases, so you can go through and scrape the data yourself for a small portion of it and then join it into the databases that are existing on Dune. So there's some workarounds. It'd be nice to be able to look at some of the metadata of a contract or actually call a contract, see what it returns, but there are enough workarounds for that with their infrastructure that it's good. And the other nice thing is Dune is actively innovating and pushing out improvements and bug fixes, etc. Even if there's something you might not have now. One good example was we wanted testnet data because we're deploying our next generation contracts on a testnet. We want to go ahead and start building out our analytics before they go live. We asked them, hey, can we get testnet data? Can we start submitting contracts on the testnet, start building up our stuff before it goes live? And just, I want to say a couple of weeks ago, they started to integrate the testnet data. So they're actively improving, getting more functionality, and that's another part of the reason we really like them is it's not the finalized product, you get what you get. They're listening to feedback, they're trying to make their platform better, and it's already so good. It's hard to think that it could get better, but it is. And they're constantly innovating and developing for it, which is really awesome.
And you mentioned about the fact that you are not able to call the smart contract itself to retrieve the return, to include it in the dashboards. And for me, it's number one feature request that I would like to see there. I do believe that they are going to implement that. At the end of the day, as you mentioned, it's just making sure that there is some node there in the infrastructure so they can handle such a request. What you will be able to create then, it will be so dynamic and probably at some point in time even interactive to a degree that you will not need anything else. So I'm looking forward to it. And about the dashboards itself on the Dune, for the people that don't know the platform, I encourage all of you to go to Dune website where you can see like hundreds of different dashboards created for different projects. Some of them are really interesting. From your side, can you share any examples of particularly successful or impactful dashboards that have been created or Dune? Maybe you have some personal favorites.
My personal favorites are the ones I made, but outside of those, I know there's an OpenSeas one that I think is maybe like the top. It has the most stars of any dashboard on Dune, where they're analyzing the overall NFT marketplace of OpenSeas to go ahead and see what are the top collections, what are the ones that are moving the fastest, having the most volume, what's the total transactional volume, how much fees are generated there. So I think some of the general platform ones are super, super powerful. They give you more analytics than any of the websites themselves might give you. OpenSeas, it'll give you what's trending, but it won't let you really dive into all the volume in one nice place necessarily. So I know that one's super powerful. And for like normal everyday use, I would say some of the bigger marketplace ones are some of my favorite dashboards. One of the other real cool features about Dune is if there's news that's happening, there's a page where you can look at the trending dashboards on Dune. And if there's news in Web3, that is the front page that you should be checking out to see not only what's happening, but to get a feel for the data there. There's like a stable coin. I know when UST was beginning to depeg, that was plastered everywhere. There's on those dashboards, there's ones whenever there's a depegging of the liquid staking derivatives, Coinbase staked ETH or Lido staked ETH, or those show up as the trending dashboards. As FTX was collapsing, there were FTX collapse dashboards trying to gather up what assets FTX had to show those. If there's a run on anything, if something's happening in Web3 and it's big, whether that's a new NFT that gets launched or a big collapse or some other black swan event, just about anything. It'll show up on that trending dashboards page, and oh my gosh, some of the people who put work in to build those dashboards are extremely talented. I think there was one that just got released today. It's looking at not whale wallets, but like big movers before tokens pumped or something as like an alpha watch. People do absolutely crazy things. There was one that was technical analysis built on Dune for any token that you could think of. And it's way beyond me having a couple of months. These are people who are like trained data scientists who just want to do this for fun and build out these really complex, deep analytics and put them on Dune. I think the real front page for Web3 is, what are the trending dashboards on Dune this week?
Regarding data scientists, once people from this field will realize straightforward and streamlined access to the data, then we will observe a lot of adoption and a lot of migration of different functions from the Web2 world. We've seen already the big migration of developers from Web2 to the Web3 world. This is going to happen also with roles, especially around data, in the next months or years. Also, looking on what's happening right now in the world with these big tech layoffs, I do think we will observe a lot of migration to Web3. Looking at the fact how easily you can start, you can just find a project you just like from the very beginning, like you like the idea, you go to the community, you get familiar, and there is always something to do. Going back to the dashboards, I think my favorite one was the dashboard around brands in NFTs and metaverse. So the dashboard that were showing all of the brands that already issued NFTs collections and how much money do they make in the initial market and then on the secondary market from royalties. Because there is always this pushback around like, what's the idea here? Why do brands even go there? It doesn't make any sense. When you are showing the data, look, the first point is there are like already dozens of brands that are there and they are just making a lot of revenue. Just look at it. I know that these are the biggest brands. That's the first wave. Then there will be the second wave. So are you going to miss the train or not? That's why I think that was my favorite one in terms of dashboards on Dune. Is there any competition for Dune? Did you do like any research in terms of different possible data analytics tools that you could use to answer the questions for the project that you were looking for? And if yes, what's unique behind Dune that at the end of the day, that was the tool of your choice?
Yeah, so I know the other one there's two that come to mind. There's another one that uses the SQL language, and they do a similar thing where they scrape data into databases and then let you query those databases. I think it's Flipside Crypto. I've looked at that a little bit. I think the problem with that is at least from what we saw earlier, and this might not be the case anymore, but was the ability to upload your own contracts. They could look at various transactions, and I think they did some of that really well, the DEX trades and whatnot. But I don't think we were able to upload our own contracts for it, we have a lot of contracts with some special functionality that we really needed those decoded to look at those calls and events. And from what I recall, we couldn't get that through them. So it wasn't quite powerful enough to go through and use. I think it's still a good tool to have, and it's real quick for, again, certain things and certain projects, and like looking at the trades on decentralized exchange, I think it's still good for that. The other major sort of infrastructure one that comes to mind is the graph, which people here might have already heard of some. We actually started developing some with the graph early as we were working on our Dune approach. But a little bit of the problem with the graph is it takes a lot longer to get up and running. To get a Dune query up and running, you have to go in, make a free account, and type out a couple of lines of code. To get a graph working or a subgraph, you have to go through and devise a schema, write out a lot of TypeScript language. And we did a little bit of that. We started to do it, but there's a lot of legwork to get something up and running. Now with the graph, you actually can look at the calls of a contract. So you can actually reach out, look at the calls of a contract, get some of that stuff. So it's maybe a little bit more powerful in that approach, but it's a lot harder to go ahead and get up and running. And especially for us, again, we had 50 some odd contracts across multiple blockchains. It would have taken a very long time to actually get good analytics up and running through the graph. That we primarily have focused on Dune right now just because it was much, much quicker to get most of the information out there and get it up and running. So Dune struck a real nice balance where it was powerful enough to do almost everything that we wanted, and we were able to get things up and running in a pretty quick order.
These are strong points, and I would like to mention just this is not a paid promotion. We just love the tool. We are trying to give back to the community, to the builders of this tool, to spread a good word, because we are using it. It helps us a lot, so just why not? However, as you mentioned, the different tools as well, they are serving their purpose, and they're also good. So just feel free to pick one of your choice, and I think all of them can bring value for you.
Yeah, and the competition in the data analytics space is going to help push everyone forward. If there's multiple good tools to use it, everyone's going to try to build the better tool or specialize a little bit more, and then that gives consumers and builders and data analysts more freedom of choice, more powerful tools in the end. I'm not saying one is necessarily the best. We chose Dune because it struck a nice balance for us.
I think it's time to show some practical example. Maybe you can walk us through a specific use case, so use case of Ethereans OS project, and show us how it utilizes the Dune dashboard. Show us effect of your work. Let us see how it looks like, what questions it can answer. The floor is yours.
So one of the dashboards that we went ahead and made was this is for our governance portion. As part of Ethereans OS, we can deploy upgrade proposals, and then the holders of the token can vote on whether or not we want to approve those proposals here. And this is our live vote tracking in Dune. And if you scroll down here, we can see there's been 4 upgrade proposals. We have some descriptions on them, when they got proposed, when they got executed, and you can even stop block for when those votes would go ahead and end. And we made this dashboard interactive, which is cool. If you look on the left side, you can change the proposal name. So we can look not only at our most recent vote, but we can actually look back on previous votes. We can look at the first, second, third proposal upgrades and see how the vote broke down, looked for each one of those. The one that's up is the most recent one, the 4th one, and you can see that we had enough votes for that we hit quorum here, and so the proposal went ahead and got passed, and we had no votes against this proposal. So this is our live vote tracking that we can use to see how people are voting, and then if you scroll down a little more, you can actually see who voted and how much they staked for each one of those, what those different voting parties voted for, and we have delegations, so those are specifically named. The 2 largest voting blocks are actually delegations which voted for other holders, which is why they're the largest contributions there. And you can even see it here as a time series and get a feel for, oh, this is how the votes were rolling in, this is how many votes got staked, by who, etc. So this is real cool to see who's active and engaged in the protocol, to track the votes, not just how they were right now, but also see the history of the votes, how they started to roll, in what time frame, and so on. We also have a second dashboard here. We have a whole bunch, but the other one we'll look at here is the token tracker. And the token tracker is very broad. It gives a lot of information about the protocol in a real nice condensed form where holders could sign on, take a minute, scroll through here, and get some real quick flashes of the protocol, like what the market cap is, and not just the market cap, but like the circulating market cap that we have. If you continue to scroll down here, we have what the price is across the decentralized exchanges, both in US dollars, which is important, but also against Ethereum. How are we holding up against Ether, which is the token we're pooled against? The one on the right shows the price, and then also how many trades are happening in a day, so you can gauge the volume as well as the price. Scrolling down more, we have the liquidity pools that have OS in them, what the pool address is, and then the Uniswap link there link out to Uniswap analytics for both the pools on Ethereum and Optimism. So you can go through and not just look at our analytics, but also link out to the Uniswap analytics. We have the total locked value in our main ETH pool, how much OS is there, how much Ether's there, what the total locked value is, not only now, but also over time, to see if we're becoming more or less liquid as a protocol. We have allocation dashboard, which is showing how much token do average holders have, how much do wallets that hold certain amounts have. We have some classifications that we just made up, like the Ethereans hold between 250 and 2,500 of a token, and you can see how much of the token supply is held by that group, and then also how many wallets. fit that classification. This is one that I think is super powerful, that I think a lot of other projects should adopt. This is where we took like the top holders on Etherscan, but we named all the contract addresses so people understand in a more plain language, oh, this is what this contract is. We have a couple of big ones. We had a token swap at one point. So our top holder isn't actually a holder. It's the contract that lets you redeem the old token for the new token, which is really important if you're looking to invest. If you saw this as just, oh, one wallet holds 20% of the supply, that would raise red flags normally. But if you come here, we're able to put explainers, we're able to name that and say, okay, that's not a single person, that's a contract, it's really a whole bunch of people that have a claim to those tokens. And then we also have the delegations named. And it's just really nice to have contracts named in a place. Holders over time, pretty self-explanatory. And then we have, I think the next section here, this is the delegations. We're able to track how much of our token is staked to particular delegations, how that looks over time, and then what the breakdown between our different delegations looks like here. And this is really awesome because these are people who are actively engaged in our protocol, who are staking for a delegation, and those delegations get funds to go ahead and do stuff. It was one of these delegations that made the Dune bounty to begin with. And then we also have the allocation where funds are in the protocol. So we have people who are just holding make up a good chunk of the people who have this token, but we also have delegations. How much is there? How much is in our liquidity pool? How much is in rewards? How much is farming the token? So we can break down and look at where is our token active in the protocol. And you can even exclude certain bits there, like if you click on any of those, it'll exclude it from the rest of the graph. So say you don't care about how much tokens on Optimism, you can just look at the stuff on mainnet. It'll auto adjust the pie chart, which is really pretty cool. And then down, the last thing we have here is like a wallet tracker. So cool thing with Dune is you can have these parameters where people just viewing the dashboards can go ahead and give an input, and it'll update the query based on those inputs. And here what we did was we looked at the token transfers for our token, and you can put in any wallet and see all their transactions that involve their token over time, and then how much they're holding currently, their balance over there on the right, which is great because then this suddenly becomes interactive. If you're curious about how a particular wallet's looked over time, you can go ahead and plug it in here and see. And we also named a couple of the contracts in here as well. So it's not just on Etherscan, you might not know, oh, they sent it over here. What is that place that they sent it? Here we named the relevant ones. So it's like it got sent to our Uniswap pool. It got sent to the voting contract. It got sent to Optimism. We have those names. We know where things are going, especially if they're specific to our protocol.
You can be proud, and I will be really happy to see that every project has this kind of advanced dashboards in place. Of course, it depends on the business logic of the project, what's inside. As I know, Ethereans OS, there is couple of complex building blocks that, thanks to these visualizations and dashboards, it helps to understand as well what's going on there. It's a good benchmark for other projects that would like to bring transparency and understanding what's going on to the community itself. I really love it.
Yeah, when Dune launched their teams, we made an Ethereans OS team for it. And I think our team was at one point in the top 10 of all the various teams on Dune. We are very proud of what we worked to create here and the transparency that we're opening up to the holders, anyone who's looking to invest in the protocol, and especially the people who are participating in how the protocol is running, what's happening. We have one other dashboard, the economics dashboard, but this is like where the money comes and goes in our protocol. And so we tried real hard here to really lay out, this is how money's coming in, this is how money's going out, this is what it's being spent on, this is where the protocol is moving the tokens around. And if you scroll down, I think it's one more, this is our infographic that we put in, how many tokens are getting sold per day for this project, how much is going to the private treasury, how much is going to our public treasury. So we're tracking all of that so that holders have an idea about how the protocol is running. I'll leave this to the people who listen to this. You can go check out any of these. I think there'll be a link. And you can scroll around. We have like how the investment fund's performing in here. We have historic inflation. Oh, and this graph brings up one interesting thing. And one other big reason to build out your analytics, there's something that sticks out on this graph, doesn't there? That dot, right? It was a community member who did a white hat exploit of one of our contracts there. So what they did was they set up a liquidity pool where they owned 100% of the token, and they routed the daily inflation cell through this pool, and essentially the protocol got a lot less ETH than it should have. And he explained how this happened, what sort of logic you'd need to set up to do this. But we captured it on our analytics here. And I think there's we have a note in Dune there that talks about this. But this pointed out a flaw in one of our contracts where it was half an ETH that sort of got white hat hacked here. And we were able to identify it on our analytics very quickly, very rapidly, because it stands out. And it's maybe not something that would stand out if you were just looking at Etherscan data or something. But we were able to catch this exploit, and we deployed a fix for it. It was our third governance update there, deployed a fix. There was another one where it was another exploit that happened, and the total amount of funds that got compromised were like $150, which is very small. But the way the exploiter used the contract, it stuck out like a sore thumb in our analytics. It was something that did not belong where it should have been, and it looked innocent enough on the outside. It looked like someone had drawn with rewards from farming and immediately sold, which would normally raise no red flags whatsoever, and it was such a small amount that no one would have caught it. But on our analytics, we saw it. It stuck out, and we were able to deploy a fix for it. So the analytics not only are for the holders, but even for the developers and for the project founders, it's super powerful because you can catch stuff that you might otherwise miss, can address them before something potentially worse happens. But having these analytics have twice alerted us to, hey, there's something that happened here. We need to look into it and tweak something. Is again just really powerful to be able to have, and the fact that you can capture all of that using a free database analyzer here is really spectacular.
During our discussion, and that will be my last question for today, and you've built a strong case around data analytics on the blockchain, data analytics on top of Dune platform. And you've also mentioned a couple of times your approach, how you started, and what's possible on the platform. So as a last question, I would like to leave our listeners, especially ones that are professionals that would like to switch careers to Web3 in the data analytics field. What would you advise? Like how to start, how to progress, where to look for job opportunities on top of this skill set?
Yeah, so good places to start would be on Dune. You can create a free account. So you don't have to pay for a subscription or anything. You can go on and just make a free account and start playing with it. If you're familiar with SQL, it should be super easy to start diving in, doing something. Start learning the language a little bit, figure out some of the different tables they have for their decentralized exchange trades, for their NFT trades, and a couple others like more raw blockchain data, like the value of a certain transaction, traces within a transaction, etc. But you can jump in a little bit with Dune, get a little bit comfortable with it, and then find a project you like or are interested in, and you can start building out analytics for that project. And maybe you approach, depending on the project and who's CEO and how their funding model works, you might be able to arrange some sort of bounty to build a dashboard. You might be able to just go to a founder and get a grant or something to go ahead and build out a dashboard. Find a project you're passionate in, and you can get started just as simply as that, diving in and fork queries, point them towards the contracts that are relevant, and then grind your way towards more advanced ones eventually. There's also the Dune Discord. Dune has a Discord server. I think you can find it through their website. They post some bounties on there as well. They're working, I think it's with Get Grants. You have to be not positive, but projects can post bounties that they let their wizards, as Dune affectionately calls us, answer those bounties, build out dashboards or queries for projects, and then get paid for those. But honestly, you just find a project you like, read up a little bit on their documentation, see if they have analytics, and if they don't, you can start building.
Exactly. I can just reinforce what you said because my learning path was exactly the same. I started with copy-pasting different dashboards and charts, and on top of that, I started to go into more advanced stuff. So I do think that's a good learning path. And then if you also can make some money on top of it while contributing to some project, that's just a win-win. So that concludes our discussion today. JPN, I appreciate your time and expertise in sharing your insights on Dune and data visualization. Your insights have been extremely valuable and informative. Thanks again for joining us on the podcast and providing such great information to our listeners.
Thanks for having me. Always love getting to talk about not only our project, but Dune and how powerful some of those analytics are. So thank you so much.
If you are interested in the work of JPN in the project of Ethereans OS, all of the links will be provided in the description, so you can go and check this out. And to learn more about how decentralized technology and Web3 can benefit your business, visit our website, tokenomia.pro, and see how we can help you to take advantage of these new trends. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more discussions on the latest developments in decentralized technology and Web3. We will be back next week with another exciting episode, so stay tuned.